Our wedding was like a scene straight out of a fairy tale. Under a vast canopy of twinkling lights, Jack and I stood hand in hand, our hearts pounding with love and anticipation. The venue was beautifully decorated, with pastel flowers and the sweet scent of roses filling the air. Our family and friends looked on with joy, their smiles reflecting our own. "Dearly beloved," the officiant began, his voice resonating throughout the hall. "We are gathered here today to witness and celebrate the union of Amelia and Jack." As he spoke about love, commitment, and the journey ahead, Jack's grip on my hand tightened. He glanced down at me, his blue eyes brimming with tears of joy. "Amelia," he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear over the soft background music, "you are my dream come true." I felt a lump in my throat and blinked back tears. "And you are mine," I whispered back, squeezing his hand in reassurance. Our vows were heartfelt, each word carrying the weight of our commitment. "I vow to always love, honor, and cherish you," I said, gazing into Jack's eyes, "through all the ups and downs, for better or for worse." Jack, ever the romantic, smiled warmly. "Amelia, I promise to stand by your side, to be your rock, your partner in every adventure, and to love you more with each passing day." The moment we were pronounced husband and wife felt surreal. The applause, the joyous laughter, the clinking of glasses, it all blended into a harmonious background as we shared our first kiss as a married couple. The reception was a whirlwind of emotions. From our first dance to the touching speeches given by our closest friends and family, every moment was a testament to the love and bond we shared. Here's to Amelia and Jack. My best friend, Clara, raised a toast. "May your life be filled with endless love, laughter, and countless memories." The night ended with us dancing under the stars, our silhouettes illuminated by the soft glow of the fairy lights. We were on top of the world, with nothing but hope and dreams for the future. The elation from our wedding carried us through our first year together. As the months flew by, we became engrossed in planning our next big step, buying our first home. The weekends were filled with house viewings, each one a potential canvas for our shared dreams, I remember the day we found the one. It was a beautiful 2-story cottage-style house with a white picket fence surrounded by blooming rose bushes and nestled in a quiet neighborhood. The moment we stepped inside, we could envision our lives playing out within its walls. "Can you imagine us here, Amelia?" Jack asked, excitement evident in his voice as he walked into the sunlit living room, the wooden floors echoing under his footsteps. I smiled, picturing us cozying up by the fireplace. "It's perfect, Jack. I can already see us hosting dinners in the dining room and maybe, just maybe, setting up a nursery upstairs." Jack wrapped an arm around me, pulling me close. "Every dream we've ever had can come true in this place." The following weeks were a blur of paperwork and packing. The day we got the keys, we celebrated with a bottle of champagne, toasting to our new beginnings. The house, though empty, echoed with our laughter and the clinking of our glasses. As days turned into weeks, we took to furnishing our home. I had a penchant for vintage pieces, and Jack, having an artistic eye, would often sketch designs for custom-made furniture. Our weekends were often spent scouring flea markets and antique stores. "Do you think this lamp would go well in the study?" I asked one day, holding up an ornate lamp with intricate designs. Jack squinted, picturing the room. "It's a bit grand, but with the right table and decor, it could be the centerpiece." Our home was gradually filled with memories and pieces that told our story. Jack had landed a few freelance gigs, but he was still on the hunt for something more permanent. I often found him in his study late at night, poring over job listings. "Don't worry," I'd reassure him, wrapping a blanket around his shoulders. "The right opportunity will come along." He'd smile, a mixture of gratitude and worry. "I just want to give you everything, Amelia, everything and more." And as we nestled into our new life, little did we know of the challenges and surprises the future held for us. But in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of our new home, everything felt just right. The following months after settling into our home were filled with little joys and domestic routines. Despite the challenges we faced, our bond seemed to grow even stronger. However, amidst the routines, I began noticing subtle changes in myself. It wasn't just the occasional wave of nausea or the unexplained fatigue. My emotions seemed to be on a roller coaster, and certain smells that I once loved now made me cringe. One particular morning stands out. I was preparing breakfast when the aroma of coffee, usually a comforting smell, made my stomach churn. Jack noticed my pallor and rushed over, concern evident in his eyes. "Amelia, what's wrong?" I'm not sure," I admitted. "I've been feeling strange for a while now." A pause hung in the air as a realization hit both of us. "Could you be?" Jack began, but couldn't finish his sentence. I nodded slowly, both of us contemplating the possibility. "I think I should take a pregnancy test." The drive to the pharmacy was a silent one, the air thick with anticipation. We bought the test, and as soon as we got home, I took it, anxiously waiting those long minutes that felt like hours. When I finally looked, the 2 lines stared back at me, confirming our suspicions. A whirlwind of emotions engulfed me. I walked out to where Jack was waiting, the result clutched in my hand. He looked up, searching my face for the answer. Without a word, I showed him the test. His eyes widened, processing the information. And then a huge grin broke out on his face. "We're going to be parents," he exclaimed, enveloping me in a tight embrace. "I can't believe it," I whispered into his shoulder, tears of joy streaming down my face. That night, we lay in bed, hands on my still flat belly, dreaming of the future. We chatted excitedly about baby names, nursery themes, and all the adventures we'd have as a family. "I hope our child has your eyes," Jack mused, tracing the outline of my face with his finger. "And your love for art," I replied with a smile. As we drifted off to sleep, our hearts were full of hope and love for the little life growing inside me. Little did we know the roller coaster of emotions we'd soon embark on, but in that moment, the world felt perfect. The initial joy of discovering our impending parenthood was soon accompanied by the challenges that came with it. As my belly began to swell, so did the demands of everyday life. Our cozy home, once a haven, began showing signs of disarray. Clothes were left unwashed, dishes piled high in the sink, and dust settled on surfaces. While my job remained a source of stability, Jack's ongoing search for steady employment became a growing concern. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I came home to find the living room in chaos. Magazines strewn around, an unwashed coffee mug from the morning, and Jack engrossed in his laptop. "Jack," I began, trying to keep the weariness from my voice, "could you maybe tidy up a bit? I'm really tired and it's getting harder for me." He looked up, a touch of irritation in his eyes. "I've been searching for jobs all day, Amelia. It's not like I'm lazing around." "I understand," I replied softly, "but we're in this together. The housework shouldn't fall on one person." Days turned into weeks, and the pattern persisted. One morning, I found myself on my hands and knees, attempting to clean up a spill, the weight of my belly making the task almost impossible. Clara, my best friend, happened to visit that day and found me struggling. "Amelia, what are you doing? "Where's Jack?" she exclaimed, rushing over to help me up. "In his study, I guess," I murmured, tears of frustration threatening to fall. Clara, always the protective one, knocked on Jack's study door. "Jack, you need to step up. Amelia can't do everything." Jack's response was curt. "I'm trying, okay? It's not easy for me either." This growing tension between us was palpable. Conversations that used to flow effortlessly now felt forced. Our once joyful anticipation for the baby was overshadowed by a looming cloud of discontent. One evening, as I was folding laundry, Jack walked in. I took a deep breath, deciding to address the elephant in the room. "We need to talk, Jack. This isn't working." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Amelia. I'm sorry. It's just, everything feels so overwhelming." "I'm overwhelmed too," I responded, my voice breaking. "But we need to face this together, for our sake and for our babies." Jack nodded slowly, the weight of our situation finally sinking in. "We'll figure it out," he murmured, pulling me into a hug. But as days turned into weeks, the strain between us continued, setting the stage for events neither of us could have anticipated. My pregnancy progressed, and the weight of our unresolved issues pressed down on us. The house became emblematic of the chaos in our lives. Despite our talks and attempts at reconciliation, Jack's lack of involvement around the house deepened my feelings of isolation and resentment. 9 months pregnant, the physical strain was almost unbearable. I had swollen feet, back aches, and a constant feeling of exhaustion. On one of those particularly tiring days, I decided to take a break from the endless cycle of chores. I was lying on the couch, hoping to catch a short nap, when Jack stormed into the room, a scowl etched on his face. He held up a plate from breakfast, now crusted with dried food. "This is disgusting, Amelia. How hard is it to clean up after yourself?" he spat out. I looked up at him, disbelief clouding my vision. I'm carrying our child, Jack. I'm exhausted. I can't be expected to do everything. "You always have an excuse, don't you?" he shot back, his voice cold. Tears welled in my eyes as the weight of months of strain and fatigue crashed down on me. "I'm doing my best, Jack, but I can't do it all. You need to help." He scoffed. "You act like you're the only one who's tired. You're always resting, always lying down. You don't even know how to maintain our home properly." I could feel my blood boiling. "I'm at my limit, Jack. I can't take this anymore." Jack's face darkened. "Maybe I made a mistake thinking you could handle this. Maybe I'd be better off without you. If you won't clean, then maybe we should just divorce." My heart raced. "Is that what you want, Jack?" I whispered, tears streaming down my face. Before I could react, he stepped closer, anger evident in his stance. What happened next would change our lives forever, and the world as I knew it would shatter in an instant. It was the breaking point of our relationship, a moment that would redefine our futures. And as the dust settled, I found myself facing a reality I had never imagined. The pain was immediate, a sharp and intense sensation that left me gasping for breath. I doubled over, clutching my stomach, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Jack's enraged face turned to one of horror as he realized the gravity of his actions. "Amelia, he stammered, taking a step back. But words failed me. The only sound filling the room was my ragged breathing and the distant ticking of the clock. Panic set in, and I felt dizzy. Collapsing on the floor, I tried to process the events, but the pain was too overwhelming. Jack, finally snapping back to reality, called an ambulance. I could hear his voice, shaky and filled with regret, explaining the situation to the dispatcher. The ride to the hospital was a blur, with medical professionals rushing around me, their voices a distant echo. All I could think about was the life inside me. My baby, our child. Hours passed, and the initial chaos subsided. I found myself lying on a hospital bed, a heart monitor beeping softly beside me. A doctor entered the room, her face a mask of professional concern. "Amelia," she began gently, "I'm so sorry, but we couldn't save the baby." The words hit me like a tidal wave, pulling me under with their devastating weight. A sob escaped my lips, and the pain in my heart dwarfed the physical discomfort I felt. Jack, who had been waiting outside, was brought in by a nurse. He looked broken, guilt etched on his face. "Amelia," he whispered, taking a tentative step forward. "Don't," I managed to say, holding up a hand. "I can't look at you right now, just—" The days that followed were a haze of grief and disbelief. I leaned heavily on my family and friends, particularly Clara, who became my pillar of strength. She was with me when I spoke to the police, recounting the events that led to the loss of my baby. Charges were filed and Jack was arrested for domestic violence. One evening, while resting at my mother's house, I looked out the window, lost in thought. Clara sat beside me, her presence comforting. "It's not your fault, Amelia," she whispered, her voice soft. "I know," I replied, tears glistening my eyes, "but it doesn't make the pain any less real." The heartbreaking truth was that my dream of becoming a mother, of nurturing a life, had been snatched away in an instant. And as I faced the arduous journey of healing ahead, I knew that my life would never be the same again. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The pain was ever present, but with time, the sharp sting started to dull, replaced by a lingering ache. The legal proceedings were draining but necessary. With Clara by my side and a formidable legal team, we built a strong case against Jack. It was during this period that I met Daniel. An attorney specializing in cases like mine, he was compassionate, understanding, and a guiding light in one of the darkest periods of my life. Our professional relationship slowly blossomed into friendship. One evening, after a particularly challenging day in court, Daniel suggested we go for a walk. The city park, with its serene atmosphere, seemed like a different world. "You know," he began, looking at the tranquil waters of the pond, "sometimes life throws the worst at us. But it's how we bounce back that truly defines us." I sighed. "I've lost so much, Daniel." He turned to face me, his eyes earnest. "But you've also shown incredible strength. You faced your fears, sought justice, and protected others from facing the same fate. That's admirable, Amelia." The warmth in his words made me smile, something I hadn't done genuinely in a long time. Our walks became a regular occurrence, and with each passing day, the weight on my heart lightened. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Amelia, I know the timing may not seem right, but I've grown to care for you deeply. When all this is over, when the dust finally settles, would you consider giving us a chance?" I looked into his eyes, seeing sincerity and hope. After a moment's contemplation, I nodded. "Yes, Daniel. I think I'd like that." The day Jack was sentenced to 9 years in prison marked the end of a painful chapter in my life. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the sun seemed a little brighter, the world a bit more hopeful. With Daniel's unwavering support, I began to rebuild. We moved to a small town where I started a support group for victims of domestic violence. Together, we turned our pain into purpose, ensuring that no one would have to suffer in silence. Although the memory of my unborn child always lingered, with time, acceptance, and healing prevailed. I found love and purpose in a world that had once seemed so bleak. And in this newfound strength, I discovered that life, no matter how broken,